Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Get ready for, well, quite an adventure today as we explore the fascinating story behind the world's largest encyclopedia.
That's right. We're diving deep into a digital marvel, something that really changed how we access information. It officially launched January 15, 2001, thanks to Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger.
And just try to picture the scale here. We're talking about a library, but digital, holding over 64 million articles.
In more than 340 languages.
Yeah.
And it's constantly alive, about 5 edits happening, every single second.
That's just mind-boggling. It's not just big, it's redefined what an encyclopedia even is.
So our mission today, we want to unpack the key pieces of this incredible project. How did it start? How did it get so huge?
And uncover some of the, let's say, surprising twists and maybe controversies along the way.
Exactly. So where should we begin? The origins.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. The idea for this giant, it didn't just appear out of nowhere, right? It actually came from an earlier project.
That's right, Wikipedia. It was also meant to be a free encyclopedia, but its approach was very different, much more traditional.
Traditional how?
Well, Wikipedia relied on experts writing the articles, and these articles went through a really formal, multi-step peer review process. Think academic journal almost.
Okay. So very rigorous, but probably quite slow.
Extremely slow, relatively speaking. The project we're talking about today, Wikipedia, took a completely different path right from the get-go. It embraced this, well, radical openness.
And that openness just lit a fire under it, didn't it? The growth was explosive, launched in 2001.
And it just took off.
Hmm.
By January 2007, it wasn't just popular. It was one of the top 10 most visited websites in the U.S.
Ahead of the New York Times online. I mean, that's a meteoric rise. What do you think really drove that initial surge?
I think it tapped into a couple of things. One, this huge public appetite for easily accessible information. And two, this really powerful potential of collective, collaborative creation. People wanted to consume and build.
Right, it wasn't just reading, it was participating in this new digital thing.
Exactly. But then things get interesting. Around that same time, 2007, especially for the English version, the growth rate, it started to change.
Change how? Slow down.
Yeah, the rate of new article creation and even the number of active editors seemed to sort of plateau. The initial hyper-growth phase was maybe ending.
Why would that happen? Any theories?
Well, researchers, like those at Palo Alto Research Center, looked into this. They suggested a few possibilities. One was just the sheer complexity coordinating such a massive volunteer project gets harder as it gets bigger.
Like trying to herd cats, but millions of them.
Kind of, yeah. Another idea was that maybe newcomers felt a bit excluded as the community developed its own rules and norms.
Oh, interesting. Like insider culture developing.
Possibly. And maybe even some resistance from established editors to, too many changes or new ways of doing things.
That makes sense. You see that in lots of communities, online or off. It gets bigger, maybe more bureaucratic in a way.
And there's also the low-hanging fruit idea.
You mean?
Meaning that maybe the most obvious, widely known topics got covered pretty quickly in those early years.
Right, so filling in the gaps becomes harder, requires more specialized knowledge, perhaps?
Exactly. Think of it like mapping a territory. You chart the big mountains and rivers first. Getting the small streams takes more detailed work. And we definitely saw the number of active editors fluctuate over time. Dips, then stabilization. Keeping volunteers engaged is, well, it's a constant challenge.
So the heart of this whole thing is this massive community Wikipedians, they're called, volunteers, openly editing. It's like a giant public scratch pad almost.
It is. But that openness immediately raises the question, how does it maintain any kind of accuracy or security?
Yeah, how do you stop it from just becoming chaos?
Well, there's this fascinating, almost philosophical approach. Some call it the procrastination principle for security.
Procrastination principle. Sounds risky.
It sort of means instead of trying to build impenetrable walls beforehand, the community tends to react and fix problems after they happen. It relies on the collective to clean things up. What do you think about that? Does it sound viable?
It sounds brave, maybe a bit like controlled chaos, but I know it's not completely open season. There are protections, right?
Oh, absolutely. For articles that get vandalized a lot or cover really sensitive stuff, they implement restrictions, things like semi-protection.
Where only registered users can edit.
Exactly. Or even full protection, where only administrators, the admins, can make changes. That's usually for highly contentious pages.
So there's a balance being struck between openness and, well, protecting the content.
It's a constant tension. You want it open, but you need to maintain integrity.
And managing all those edits millions a day must require some serious tools.
Definitely. Every article has a history page. You can literally see every single change ever made, who made it, and when.
Wow, total transparency.
Pretty much. Plus, users can watch list articles they care about, get notified of changes, and there's a whole group doing new pages patrol, checking the brand new articles for, obvious problems.
So it's a combination of transparency and dedicated community oversight.
Right. And economically, the argument is that this wiki model works because the cost of participating, the transaction cost, is so low, it's relatively easy for anyone to jump in and add something.
But that ease also opens the door to less helpful contributions. Vandalism.
Yep, that's the flip side. Vandalism is a constant battle. It could be silly stuff like adding jokes, or much worse, inserting false information, hate speech, deleting large chunks of content.
Ugh. And then there's edit warring. What's that?
That's when editors just go back and forth, reverting each other's changes over and over again without really discussing it.
So just fighting digitally instead of building the encyclopedia.
Exactly. It's seen as really unproductive, just drains energy. And interestingly, researchers have actually tracked which articles have the most conflict.
Oh. Which ones tend to be hotspots?
On the English version, historically, articles like George W. Bush, the concept of anarchism, and the figure of Muhammad have seen a lot of edit warring.
Okay. Yeah, those are definitely topics that stir up strong feelings.
Yeah.
It shows how real-world debates spill over.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And it varies by language, too. A study in 2013 found that on German Wikipedia, articles about Croatia, Scientology, and 9/11 conspiracy theories were among the most disputed.
Fascinating. It reflects different cultural or political concerns in different language communities.
Precisely.
Now, to stop it being a total free-for-all, there have to be rules, right? Core policies.
Absolutely. There's a whole framework of content policies. One big one is notability.
Meaning the topic has to be, well, notable, famous enough.
Sort of. Generally, it means the subject needs significant coverage in reliable sources, independent of the subject itself, like mainstream news or academic publications. You can't just write about your garage band if no one else has.
Okay, so it's not for original discovery or promotion.
Exactly. And that ties into another core policy, verifiability. Everything should be traceable back to a reliable, published source.
So you need citations.
Yes. And this leads to a really interesting, sometimes debated principle. Verifiability, not truth.
Verifiability, not truth. What does that mean?
It means that even if you know something is true, if you can't find a reliable source that says it, it shouldn't be in the article. The encyclopedia reflects what's been documented, not necessarily absolute truth.
That's a subtle but important distinction. It's about summarizing existing knowledge.
Precisely. And maybe the most crucial policy, especially for those controversial topics we mentioned, is maintaining a neutral point of view, or NPOV.
No taking sides.
Right. Present all significant viewpoints fairly without endorsing any particular one. That's incredibly hard to do, especially on hot-button issues.
I can only imagine the debates in the background trying to achieve that neutrality.
Oh, definitely. And over the years, the number of policies and guidelines,
Yeah.
it's grown. It's quite a complex system now.
So who actually enforces these rules and keeps things ticking over? We mentioned admins.
Right, administrators. They're experienced editors elected by the community who get extra tools, deleting pages, blocking disruptive users, applying page protections.
Elected by the community, so it's sort of democratic.
In a way. But the process to become an admin, the request for adminship or RFA, can be quite demanding, even contentious sometimes. It shows how much the community values those roles.
Contentious. Sounds like digital politics.
It can have elements of that, yes. And it's not just humans anymore. Automated programs, bots, do a huge amount of work now.
Bots. What kind of work?
Routine stuff, mostly. Fixing formatting, identifying vandalism, adding categories, even granting some basic permissions to humans. But even using bots is debated. Some worry automated rejections might scare off new editors.
That leads to the big question. Who actually writes Wikipedia? Is it a few hardcore users or millions of casual contributors?
That's been debated quite a bit. Jimmy Wales himself suggested it's a core group, maybe 500 people, doing the bulk of the edits.
Just 500. For millions of articles.
Well, that was one view. Others, like Aaron Swartz back in the day, analyzed the amount of text added and argued that actually a huge chunk of the content comes from people who don't edit that often, the outsiders.
So maybe a mix, a dedicated core keeping things running, and a wider base adding specific knowledge.
That seems likely. You have the insiders who know the rules, the culture, the technical side, and then a much larger, more fluid group contributing perhaps more sporadically.
Does it take a lot to become an insider?
It can. There's a learning curve understanding the wiki markup language, the dispute resolution processes, just the community norms. It takes time and effort. Some even say unregistered editors are viewed a bit skeptically by the regulars.
But does being registered or editing a lot actually mean your edits are better?
Interestingly, maybe not always. A Dartmouth study back in 2007 found that anonymous users and infrequent editors were often just as reliable in their edits as the registered insiders.
Really? That's
Yeah.
surprising.
It suggests the collaborative process itself, the fact that many eyes see the edits, might be very effective at catching errors, regardless of who made the edit.
Okay, so it's not just English, obviously. You mentioned hundreds of languages.
An incredible number, 342 language editions as of May 2025.
Wow. Is English the biggest?
By article count, yes, but it only holds about 10.8% of the total articles across all languages.
So 90% of the content is in other languages.
Right.
What are some of the other big ones?
Well, here's a quirky fact. The second biggest, by article count, is Cebuano,
Cebuano, a language from the Philippines. How did that happen?
and Swedish is number 5. The reason they have so many articles is largely down to one specific bot called LSJBot.
A bot created millions of articles.
Yes, LSJBot was programmed to automatically generate short, stub articles, mostly about biological species or geographical locations, using data from online databases.
So quantity over quality, maybe, in those cases.
It's definitely a different approach. It helps fulfill that original vision, though, which Jimmy Wales stated clearly. A free encyclopedia for every single person on the planet in their own language.
That's still the driving goal.
It is. And even though these language versions operate mostly on their own, there is coordination. There's a site called MetaWiki.
What's that for?
It's the central hub for all Wikimedia projects. They share stats, discuss policies that affect everyone, maintain lists of vital articles that ideally every language should have. It helps connect the different communities.
An intricate global network. Now, with something this big and influential, it must get a lot of praise, but also a lot of criticism.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's praised constantly for democratizing knowledge, its incredible breadth of coverage, the power of its community model. Its impact is undeniable.
But the criticisms, I've definitely heard about bias being an issue.
Yes, systemic bias is a major one. Gender bias is well documented, fewer articles about women, far fewer female editors.
Right. And geographical bias, too, like focusing too much on certain parts of the world.
Exactly. Often called Eurocentrism or a Western bias. The content might naturally reflect the interests and backgrounds of the majority of editors.
That makes intuitive sense. And what about reliability? People used to be very skeptical.
Very skeptical in the early days. But that perception has shifted quite a bit. By the late 2010s, it gained more respect. And now, honestly, it's a primary fact-checking source for many people, especially for breaking news.
But the accuracy concerns haven't vanished completely.
No. Criticisms remain about articles potentially being dominated by editors with strong viewpoints, maybe pushing a certain agenda or even deliberate manipulation.
And ideological bias accusations still pop up.
Yes, from all sides of the political spectrum, you'll find people claiming bias. Some research has pointed towards a kind of pro-Western slant in the English version, for instance. It's a constant struggle to achieve that neutral point of view ideal.
Seems like it. Before we delve deeper into more fascinating stories from the world's largest encyclopedia, if you're enjoying this adventurous exploration into the knowledge behind the internet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on future episodes of Tell Me More, where we'll continue to unravel the stories that shape our world.
Okay, so picking up on accuracy again. There was a really famous study, wasn't there? Comparing it to Encyclopedia Britannica.
Ah, yes, the nature study from 2005. That made waves. What did it find?
It looked specifically at science articles and concluded, rather surprisingly at the time, that the level of accuracy was pretty comparable. Wikipedia averaged about 4 inaccuracies per science article, while Britannica averaged about 3.
So, not perfect, but much closer than many expected.
Exactly. It really challenged the idea that the traditional expert-led model was inherently vastly superior, at least for science topics.
But Britannica pushed back, right? They disputed the study.
They did, quite strongly. They criticized the methodology, the article selection. Other researchers also raised questions about sample size and whether the findings would apply equally well to, say, humanities topics where things change less rapidly.
So, interesting snapshot, but maybe not the final word. And academically, it's still generally not okay to cite it directly in papers.
That's still the standard advice, yeah.
Well,
Most professors want you to go to the primary sources, the things Wikipedia itself cites. Even Jimmy Wales has said encyclopedias aren't meant to be the final authoritative source for scholars.
right. He famously told students who failed for citing it, "You got what you deserved." Pretty blunt.
Ah, yes, underscores the point. It's a starting point, it's a great overview, but not the end of your research.
Though you mentioned it can be used educationally, like
Uh,
in flipped classrooms.
Yeah, there's research suggesting it can be a useful tool in the learning process. Having students engage with articles, maybe even edit or improve them as part of an assignment, can be a valuable exercise.
That's a more constructive take. Okay, let's talk about some specific content controversies. That Wikipedia is not censored policy must lead to some tricky situations.
It definitely has. It's been central to debates about including material that some find offensive or sensitive, like the images of Muhammad back in 2008.
There was a petition to remove them.
A big one, yes. But the English Wikipedia community decided against removal, citing the not censored policy, which, in turn, led to the site being blocked in some countries.
Wow. Balancing free information with cultural sensitivity, that's a tough line.
Extremely tough, and the policy also comes up regarding explicit content generally. There's criticism about allowing images or information some consider pornographic.
Like that Scorpions album cover, Virgin Killer.
That's a famous example.
Oh.
The article showing the original controversial cover art was temporarily blocked by some UK internet providers.
And wasn't there a controversy involving Wikimedia Commons, the media library, and child protection concerns?
Yes. In 2010, co-founder Larry Sanger raised concerns with the FBI about certain images hosted on Commons, arguing they constituted child pornography, even if artistic or historical. This sparked a huge internal debate.
And Jimmy Wales got involved directly.
He did. He deleted some images without going through the usual community process, which led to him temporarily giving up some of his admin rights. It highlights the incredibly difficult ethical lines they have to navigate.
These controversies showed just how complex managing a global, open platform can be.
Absolutely. And returning to bias, the gender gap is one of the most persistent issues,
Right, the fact that most editors are male, we touched on that.
and how that can impact the content. The story of Donna Strickland is often cited.
The Nobel Prize winner, what happened there?
An article about her was initially rejected from English Wikipedia in 2018. The reason given was she wasn't famous enough, based on their notability rules.
And then she won the Nobel Prize just months later.
Exactly. It became a huge example, cited in discussions about systemic bias, how notability might be skewed by media coverage, which itself might have biases, and the underrepresentation of women both as subjects and editors.
Have studies looked into why there's this gender gap?
Yes, exploring things like differences in online confidence, comfort with public editing or conflict, responses to criticism. It seems to be a mix of factors. No easy fix.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. How does this whole massive thing stay afloat? Who pays the bills?
It's run and funded by the Wikimedia Foundation, a nonprofit. They host the servers, develop the software, support the community.
And they rely on?
Donations, primarily. Those fundraising banners you sometimes see. That's what keeps the lights on. They also get some grants. Their financials are public. It takes significant money to run that global infrastructure.
So those donations are actually crucial.
Absolutely. They pay for servers, bandwidth, software development, like the visual editor, which aims to make editing easier, and staff who support the volunteers.
And the content itself is free to use.
Yes, it's under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. You can reuse it, share it, even adapt it, as long as you give credit and share any adaptations under the same license.
How are most people accessing it now, still on desktops?
Less and less. Mobile access is huge, the dominant way people read it now.
Billions of page views on phones and tablets.
Exactly. Editing on mobile is trickier, and that's something the community is grappling with, how to keep contribution flowing smoothly in a mobile-first world. But the readership numbers are just astronomical.
How big are we talking?
As of early 2023, something like 2 billion unique devices accessing it every month globally. The English version alone gets around 10 billion page views monthly.
Just staggering reach. It's become part of the internet's fabric.
Absolutely. And its influence goes beyond just casual lookups.
How so?
Well, we're seeing it referenced more and more in formal contexts. Academic studies sometimes cite it, though maybe not as a primary source. Books mention it. Lawyers might use it for background in court cases.
Even intelligence agencies.
Reportedly, yes, often as a quick primer on a topic. Some academic journals even ask authors submitting papers to also create or update the relevant Wikipedia page.
That's quite a shift.
It really is. Time magazine recognized its significance. Politicians reference it.
Yep.
Many see it as a cornerstone of the open web now. It's gone from niche experiment to major cultural force.
Any other fun cultural markers? You mentioned the nature study.
Well, it's popped up in TV shows like The Office, and there's even a physical monument to Wikipedia.
A statue. Where?
In Subis, Poland. A tribute to the collaborative effort of contributors worldwide. It really shows how embedded it's become.
That is amazing. A monument.
And here's a related fun fact tying into that collaborative spirit. Back in 2006, Time Magazine's Person of the Year was you.
You, as in me.
As in everyone contributing to user-generated content platforms that were exploding. Then Wikipedia, YouTube, MySpace, Facebook, Reddit. It was recognizing that shift towards collective online creation.
Acknowledging the power of the crowd. That makes sense. Okay, one last area, its impact on traditional publishing, especially encyclopedias.
Oh, the impact was massive. Commercial encyclopedias, particularly print ones like Britannica, really struggled to compete with a free, constantly updated, much larger digital alternative.
Did it basically kill the print encyclopedia?
Pretty much for the mass market. Britannica stopped its print edition years ago. There's still debate, though, on whether user-generated content fully replaces professionally curated material.
Some argue convenience and free win out. Others say rigorous expert content still holds unique value.
Exactly. But even academia uses Wikipedia now in unexpected ways, like those university rankings based partly on citations within its articles. So it's influencing the traditional world, too. It's a story that's definitely still unfolding.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture here? What does it all mean?
Well, I think it shows Wikipedia is so much more than just an online encyclopedia. It's really a living document. It's a testament to mass collaboration, the democratization of knowledge.
But with ongoing challenges, clearly. Bias, vandalism, maintaining accuracy.
Definitely. It's not perfect.
Hmm.
But its scale, its constant evolution, the fact it's built by millions of volunteers globally.
Yeah.
It makes it a truly unique and hugely significant part of our culture.
It really has changed how billions access information. An incredible story of ambition and, well, constant change.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on. We're seeing incredible advances in artificial intelligence right now. How do you think AI might interact with this colossal storehouse of human knowledge in the future?
That's a big question. Could AI help write articles? Or maybe introduce new kinds of bias? How might it change how we use Wikipedia?
What new challenges and maybe opportunities could AI bring to this already constantly evolving project? Something to think about.